Welcome to the CX Roundtable. I am so excited to be here. This is a conversation that I've been waiting to have for a long time with two people that I just think the world of and respect so much with what they've been able to do. But it's also a topic that I've done before as well, which is why there's only two additional panelists instead of three or four, since I figured we have a lot to talk about. And I want to make sure that Kenji and Priscilla are able to share all of their nuggets of wisdom. So welcome. We're going to be talking about building these support teams from scratch, what we've learned, what we would do differently, what are things to keep in mind if you are joining a team as one of those early hires or as the first hire, and the importance of the foundations and how they really set the tone for the years ahead of you with support within the company. It's not really something that you just throw together. You have to be very thoughtful about it. And these two individuals are very thoughtful about it. And so let me send this over to them to introduce themselves. We'll start with Kenji. Kenji, I'm so pumped that you're here.
I know. I'm glad we can finally do this. This is a topic that is very near and dear to me. A little bit about me. So I have been the first hire. I have hired the first hire, but I've also taken over existing teams and kind of refactored it. And so, yeah, my career completely spans support over the last 14 years, leading teams for the last 10. I work at Front today, where I've been for about 7.5 years. And I'm obsessed with support. I like to talk about it. I like to post about it. So if I'm not hanging out with my family, I am living and breathing all things CX and support.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
I
It's
know.
once you're in it, you are in it.
I am in.
And then we also have someone that has taught me so much about the foundations of support with her incredible podcast, Happy to Help. We have Priscilla. I am so glad I finally get to hang out with you in a recorded setting that is mine, not just yours.
Yeah. I like to think of it as all of ours.
It is.
Yes, my name is Priscilla Brooke. I am the head of podcaster success for Buzzsprout, which is a podcast hosting service. So I've been working in customer support and podcasting for the past about 9 years. I was the first support hire at Buzzsprout, and I came from no support background. And so it was really wild to start building something that I really knew very little about. But in some ways, I think that helped me build things in a way that felt very natural and authentic. And so I'm excited to talk about it. Thanks for having me on, Sarah.
Yay. Thank you so much. So I think the best way for us to start is something that is worth talking about right off the bat. And it's understanding what you actually have control of when you join a support team. Because usually when you come in as that first hire, someone somewhere within the company has been doing support for a bit of time. Support is never that hire that gets hired before like marketing and sales and everything like that. No, we are usually the last team that gets added to a company. So there's already systems in place. There's already tooling in place that you don't have any control over. So when you joined Front, Kenji, or when you have been the first hire at support at other companies, what did you have control over?
Yeah, well, definitely not the tool. I work at Front, so we use Fronts.
That's a very good point. You're stuck with that one.
Set for that one, but actually it worked out. So I was the second hire at Front, so I think they made a great hire. Shout out to Corey who hired me. We could talk about that later in terms of the profile, but I think the things you don't have control over are the tools. The things that you do have are the workflows. So kind of understanding, where do those things live today? Has the CEO been responding to customers? Is it customer success? And when I joined Front, it was very fragmented. Like the success team owned the knowledge base. Literally everybody was replying to customers in the entire company. So they're kind of working from one shared inbox. So I think one of the first things I did was just investigate where everything lives and then go like, hey, I'm going to take that off your plate and own it. Even if I didn't fully understand it, like I think the first step is just making sure support owns it and it's really clear, and then you can start to make decisions. But that's the thing that I found. I also found the same thing to be true when I was the first hire at Revel. And that was the biggest team I actually worked for, but same thing, like early founders responding to customers, just nobody really had ownership of things and processes. So I kind of took the lead to just grab those things in kind of a little bit of an imposter syndrome. And even if I didn't know exactly what it was, I just knew that having it live in support was the right thing to do. That was step one for me.
Yep. No, that imposter syndrome in the early days, I think you have to have it because you are going into an unknown. Like
Yeah.
every single time you are that first, even second hire, you don't know what you're walking into, even if you've had fantastic conversations in an interview. Like the day to day is very different. Do you have control over your budget? Probably not in those early days because things are really scrappy. Will you eventually get control over your budget? Sometimes no. Sometimes that's just something that doesn't end up making its way down the pipeline for you. So there's a lot of gray and being unsure if it's something that you can actually take on. I think just shows how much you care about what you're about to do and about doing it right and not just throwing spaghetti at the wall every time, all the time, because you do know something about what you're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hired you. So that makes a lot of sense. And Priscilla, you were the very first hire.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I started with Buzzsprout, our head of marketing was kind of our marketing person and our support person, which is a natural, start because they're both communicating to customers. And so it makes sense, right? But in order to move into that growth mindset for marketing, they needed someone else to come in and handle support. And so I came in and stepped into that role. And for me, it was pretty different. Buzzsprout is really good about giving a lot of autonomy to everyone on the team. And so I came in and I think the most, we had a system kind of in place, but everyone kind of helped with support. And the biggest thing that I remember in those like first couple weeks, as far as like learning what the processes were that were already in place, was asking yourself, is this the right thing to do? Like that was our biggest philosophy, was like, how would you want someone to respond to you? And is that the right way? Like, should we do this refund? Well, is that the right thing to do? Does it feel like the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? And that was really our like driving philosophy when I started. There were not a lot of like written out systems in place. There were not, there wasn't clear breakdowns of who owned what. So I did a little bit of what Kenji was saying, like kind of pulling things into my sphere and going, okay, I'll handle this. I'll take care of this. As much as I could alongside the inbox. But I think it was really cool because I was lucky enough to be in a place where I was given a lot of control right off the bat to handle things the way that I felt was the right way to handle them. And I think that was pretty rare. I don't think that's normal, but I felt very lucky to be able to do that.
Well, you proved that they were making the right choice over and over again as you were growing this foundation within support and working with Buzzsprout. I'm a customer of theirs, and I talk about Buzzsprout being one of my favorite customer support experiences. That mindset of, is this the right thing to do, is still something that you've been able to scale, and you're able to seamlessly continue conversations with customers with different people hopping in to close the loop, and nothing is dropped. It's still just, you've created a space where people are having conversations. They're not just checking something off the list and moving on to the next thing in the queue. Like, they are talking to another human being, and you've afforded them the permission to approach support in such a conversational way that matters. And it's not common. People get a lot of canned replies. People get a lot of, just pushing them to a knowledge base, and to have someone sending you like gifts of silly things when you're able to get something done that you're really proud of, or even just one of your members of your team, it was their birthday. I remember one time, and it was in their signature, and that
Oh,
was
that's
just such a
nice.
cool thing to
Yeah.
just be able to be like, oh my gosh, I'm talking to you on your birthday. I hope you're having a great day, and just make that human connection even more. And that's all part of the foundation.
Yeah.
It's all part of the foundation.
And I think it speaks to my, the partners, the people who hired me, giving me that freedom to figure it out as I go and the freedom to try things and have them not work and try other things. Because if they didn't give me that kind of autonomy in those early months, I don't think we would be where we are today, trying things and figuring out if we put our birthday information in the signature for this one day, is that going to have a positive effect or a negative effect? And seeing how that works. And then maybe we keep doing it, maybe we don't. You wouldn't try those things if you didn't feel like you had the freedom to try things and fail. And so I do give a lot of kudos to, the partners, the department heads that are giving that kind of autonomy and gave it to me when I was starting. And I think that, if you're in a place where you're getting ready to hire a first support person, let their not being super familiar with support be a benefit in building a support team. Because a lot of times, I think the reason we're able to have these very conversational interactions is because most of the people on my team did not come from a support background. So they really didn't know what was supposed to happen in support, supposed to. And so they just approach it like humans talking to humans and conversations. And that allows you to have that really comfortable back and forth. So if you're looking to hire people, sometimes people that you wouldn't expect from their experience are actually going to be the stars on your team.
Yep.
I think you're a great example of that. Like, I think that's the same advice I would give is when you're doing the first hire, it's less about the support experience and more about the autonomy and the fit. Like the hire after me was a teacher before. She had never worked in support. Guess who built my knowledge base and all of our training material and onboarding? That was all Helena. So I do think that coming from a different background is actually a superpower, super early.
No, I definitely agree. I think that it allows you to see things as a customer would. And that's one of the best things about hiring on a support team is remembering every single person on your team represents a customer. The way that they think, the way they move through the product, the way that they read the documentation, the way they learn. Those are all just human experiences, human things. And every day you are talking to a very mixed bag of humans that are all going to react differently. They're all going to absorb information or approach conversations differently. And there's such an opportunity to just lean into that when you're building your team. And we've all seen this now, I'm sure. Like, you've got your companies that see customer service as customer service, not support. It is just the stereotypical, black and white, follow the script type of place. Then you've got the customer support, which we see in the communities that we're a part of, how we've met one another, where people are veterans and they know what good looks like, but good is they know what good looks like because they've seen so much of what good does not look like, either as a consumer or as a member of a team. And they're actively trying to prove that good does not have to be so rigid. Good can be flexible. It can be fluid. It can just be a human interaction, which is why it's so exciting, but also so important to acknowledge that the way that you both have approached support is not the way that a CEO may want you to approach support or think you have to approach support. And so when you enter into these spaces, you don't know. You don't know.
Mhm.
You really are just kind of at the mercy of what they're going to give you permission to do.
Yeah.
And there's something really, in support, you're building relationships, right, with your customers. And there's an authenticity when you make a mistake that I think a CEO might look at and go, no, you shouldn't be making these mistakes. Everything needs to be 100% accurate all the time. And I get that we want to be as accurate as possible. But there's a level of humanity and humility that comes from making a mistake and owning up to it with a customer. And it strengthens that relationship.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I think there's, different perspectives to look at it. But if you're someone sitting in the chair answering the email, being able to have that humility when you do make a mistake is, I think, in some ways really powerful in
Yes.
building the relationship and strengthening the relationship.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get this wrong. Like heads of supports, you probably shouldn't. That shouldn't be your first hire. Your first hire should be somebody like Priscilla, like maybe me when in my first role. Because what's going to happen is you're one person. Who are you going to manage? You need to focus on answering customers, figuring out all the basics. Like my first year at Front, I did over 10,000 tickets, so I probably spent maybe 5% of my time outside of the queue. And that was actually a good thing because I got to like know my team super well. We got to build a knowledge base together. And I wouldn't trade that for the world, but I think a lot of people these days are looking at these roles that are open for these super early stage companies and they want everything. They want you to be the process builder, the queue crusher, like all of the above. And I've seen that expectation kind of missed on both sides where it's like, oh, I'm going to join this team. I don't want to be in the queue. I want to kind of build and focus on scaling and strategy. That's probably not going to happen in a very small team. You have to just have a very low ego and understand like this is the role for at least until we build this thing out for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that that's a really important point. And I think that's also a big differentiator in the type of people that are out
Mm-hmm.
there doing support. Like, I can see Kenji, Priscilla, a lot of people we know in like support driven, myself. I mean, I love the queue. I have
Yep.
always loved the queue. And even though I'm not in the queue right now, it doesn't really change the love that I have for that space and the things that I've learned over time as an IC or even just as the only person there
Mhm.
doing all of this. And when you're hiring for your first support person, even if it is someone that has really fancy titles in their resume, you have to ask them how they feel about the queue. You have to ask them, like, what is it about this field that excites you? And because it's definitely not the money. I mean,
Yeah, that's true. That's a whole other
you
topic, but yeah, that's
you
true.
gotta love it. You really have to love it. And
You're
it's
right.
not a stepping stone if you're coming into these sorts of things. Like that's a totally different mindset. If you're thinking of this as a stepping stone, you're probably not seeking roles at early stage startups. You're probably trying to get into those bigger companies that
Mhm.
are harder to get into the departments that, you think are more worthy of you to occupy that space. So understanding if you are someone that's making that first hire, like this is someone that has to thrive in chaos, that has to
Well,
love chaos and think of it as a puzzle that they're going to get through and build processes and systems that are rooted in surviving chaos and
Mhm.
learning from chaos. And I love what you said, Priscilla, about being able to make mistakes, because I think that also needs to be acknowledged as something that sets the tone for how the customer receives information. Like, if you are building a team that they feel safe enough to make a mistake, say that they've made a mistake, even just internally, like
Yeah.
to their team, hey, I messed this one up. I totally misread this thing and I took them on a path that was so not where I should have gone. A lot of places don't have that safety. That is a
Mhm.
negative thing. That is that old mentality of you're replaceable and you don't dare admit that you are wrong because therefore you no longer are deserving to be here. And if you're interacting with a customer and you don't feel safe enough to make a mistake, you are going to make so many mistakes.
And you're gonna move
So many
so
mistakes.
slowly.
So slow.
exactly.
So slowly, which you
So
really can't
slowly.
afford to do,
Mhm.
especially if you're one of the first couple hires
Mhm.
and you're dealing with a inbox that's going crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And
Yeah.
then think about the customer too. If they just made a mistake, they're coming to you saying, help me, I just made a mistake. They probably are feeling crappy. They're probably
Mhm.
feeling very vulnerable. They're not in the best headspace. And then to have the person that they're talking to come back to them and say, do you know how many times I have made this exact same mistake? Like, we are trying to figure out a better way to like build this documentation out so that folks like you and I don't find ourselves into these situations. Like, that just completely centers them and makes them feel valued and heard
Yeah.
and safe to continue to ask more questions. Like, that's
And
what
it
we
levels
want
the playing field. So
so
now
much.
they're looking at you as a peer who's helping them, who's holding their hand, and not as someone who they feel bad about coming to for another question. Oh my goodness, I'm so dumb. We
Yep.
get that all the time because,
Yeah.
we're working with people who are learning technology of podcasting, right? So they're coming to us, they're like, I don't know how to use a microphone. I don't know how to do this. And so when we kind of show some of our humanity in, hey, I can help you do this, but just so you know, I'm not an expert in
Mm,
microphones.
mhm.
Mhm.
It brings that levels that playing field. So now it's more of a back and forth conversation where we're helping them out because that's what we love to do, and not this feeling of, okay, now I got to clear the queue because this is the job I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is why it's so important to nail the first hire because you do set the tone. Like we talked about what we don't have control over. You can control the next hire, and if this is the culture and the atmosphere and the environment that you want to build, that's what's going to stay. Like if I think about the culture at Front when I started, almost 8 years ago, it's very similar to what it is now. The team's a lot bigger, but I think the core, maybe it's because a lot of us are still here, most of us, but like the core values haven't changed over time.
Yep. No, that's such an important thing to say too, because it's true. You do have control of your space. You do have control of your circle and what you're building. And even if your core values on your team are different
Mhm.
than the core values in the company itself, that's okay. You
Yeah,
have to focus on culture fits because outside of culture, things can be taught.
I,
You
I
will
treat
learn it.
my team as its own startup. Like that's the way I look
Yes.
at it. Like we are within the company, we're aligned with the overall values, but we do things that are very unique to us, and I manage it just like it's its own company within a company.
How has that been perceived in your company by approaching it that way?
They love it, and I think it's because it's in line with like the ownership value that we have. Like people, like speed is an advantage, I think, really early. And so the faster that we can make decisions internally within support, not have to rely on other teams to say, okay, go ahead and do that. Like marketing, go ahead and publish that on the status page. I think that's what's kind of shown the value, which is like
Mhm.
by giving more power and empowering your support team to make their own decisions, that helps you be faster. You can make mistakes because if you're not moving fast enough, I mean, if you're moving too slow, if you're not making mistakes at that point. So, um, yeah, speed's a huge advantage, especially right now. I think that's the biggest advantage in smaller upstart companies. That's the only advantage you have right now versus your competitor.
Yep. No, it's true. It really is true. It is, you see this like in CSATs all the time. Those high scores, whenever they put a comment, it is usually they were so quick to get back to me. It's not this person got it right the first time. It's this person was there when I needed them. And that's what
Mm.
speed is. It's saying, I value my customers enough to meet them where they are at their moment of need. Because anytime you reach out to support, you are at a point that you can no longer be successful independently. And that means you're stuck. You're stuck.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing you can do. You're just at the mercy of a stranger. And to leverage speed of just even saying, my gosh, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. I'm working with my team to figure out what the best next step is. Always send the message.
Mm.
Let
Mhm.
them know you are doing no one any favors by saying, this is stressing me out. It's going to take me a long time. I'm not going to be able to get to it until tomorrow. I'm not going to say anything to the customer. That customer has no idea that this is a complicated thing that requires someone that's in the UK time zone to hop in and get
Yeah.
them all these things. They just think they're being ignored.
This is
Yeah,
why
we always say,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, we always say, get the credit. If you're working on the project, the problem, get the credit.
Yep.
Let them know you're doing it. There's no reason. Sometimes we'll have situations where we're working on something, but we haven't responded yet. I'm like, if we're working on it and it's going to take more than a few minutes, let's respond and let them know, and let's get the credit for working on it so they know we're on it. Because otherwise they don't think anyone has seen their email.
I think the mistake people make is they focus on replies to resolution or efficiency really early, which dings the team to to send that nice extra message. You're actually creating the metrics getting worse when you do that.
Yeah.
So that's something I absolutely do not focus on. So I keep it super simple when I start. It's speed, like response time, not really CSAT so much. Like you're just kind of figuring out your baseline really early. But I try not to put too much pressure on my team. The queue is just insane. Can we get through today? Can we hit our SLAs? And we're good, and then we'll figure things out over time. But I think when you start to incentivize the behaviors of like restricting how much you can contact a customer, that just, of course that's going to happen. So, but I've seen that play out even early in my career, which is why I don't do it anymore.
Yeah. No, I think that's one of the things that is such a struggle in leadership within support, especially when you're trying to share information cross-functionally. The support metrics are not great. And they only tell a smidge of
Yeah.
a story on their own, and they're never going to tell the whole story, even when you combine every single stereotypical metric that's in there. I mean, you've got NPS that has nothing to do with support. You've got CSAT, which is emotional and doesn't usually like reflect truly what was happening. You've got first time to reply, which is also my favorite because that tells me, am I staffed well? Does my team have the resources that they need to be successful? Do they feel safe enough to take their time on this? Are they stressed about the state of the queue? Like that paints a very clear picture, not on how good we are doing at our job, but how good I'm doing at my job. And like the response, like the number of responses, how many old people have we encountered that keep that thread alive for 7 years? Like,
Oh yeah.
they're never dropping that thread. You're at 100. You are at 100 plus, and they are riding that thread all the way home, and they love it.
Yeah.
They love it.
Well,
So
and
true.
think about, you said in the beginning, Sarah, that you like that we send you a gift sometimes when you interact with the Buzzsprout support team. That's another response to resolve. So if we're just
Yes.
sending a follow-up gift to have a little personality at the end of the interaction, that's skewing that metric. And so it's not a good metric for us. In fact, if it's lower than, a certain number, I'm like, man, we're not responding enough. We're not giving enough of this personality. I almost want it to be a little bit closer to 2 or 3,
Right.
because that
Yeah.
shows that there's the personality interaction, which is so valuable for us. And so, yeah, I think, the other thing about CSAT is just, everyone looks at that and thinks that it is the best way to get an idea. But some people are going to be frustrated with your support because they're frustrated with your product and they just don't want to use it because it's not the right fit for them. We talk about on my team, like, we want to avoid trying to sell people peaches because we actually sell apples. And they want a peach and they ask for a peach. And so we're trying to make our apple look like a peach. But the reality is we don't sell peaches. And so we're not going to try to convince you to buy from us if you want a peach and we sell an apple. And I think that reflects in your CSAT scores sometimes.
Yes.
And so it really just isn't a good way to measure how your customers actually feel about your product,
No.
because the ones that you need to know from are the ones that are the right fit for your product.
Yeah.
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 I just think it's one of the ones that we do it because it's kind of people have been doing it for 30
Yeah.
years, and it's the way, it's what we were taught when we were
Yep.
coming up. And I've just been more recently really starting to question every metric that I've been using.
Yes.
And like, so I would encourage other folks. There's a lot of pressure when you're building a team, especially to show the C-suite. They know CSAT. That's why we use it. It's so
Yes.
familiar. Everyone gets it. You got a high CSAT. You've got good customer
Yep.
service satisfaction. But there are other ways to do it. But I get it. I get why I did it in the beginning. I still use it to this day. It's because it's easily digestible, but I think we can do better.
It is. Yep.
Yeah. Especially in the early days when you don't have a ton of volume, I think that CSAT could be used in a really powerful way if you create a newsletter and you break down what all of those interactions actually were. And I did that at a past company where I didn't do CSAT until like my 4th year there. And I'm finally like, I just want to see what happens. Like, what happens if I turn this on? And the cool piece about CSAT is you are then able to see the impact that you have in those small interactions, like the ones that you don't think about, the forgot your password ones, those quick little ones. Those are the ones that often you get the most positive CSAT responses to because they didn't expect something fast and sincere and personal. They just expected to be sent to another page on the website and that they've been to 7 times and the link doesn't load. Like those are the moments that outside of support, no one sees. No one sees the impact that that has on retention and at the same time, the bottom line. And so if you go through and you can take all of those CSAT responses, take all of the comments that people made, but then also take all the negative ones and say, this was negative because so and so was not going to go against our security policy and share this information. This one was negative because they thought they were reaching out to Amazon and they were really
Right.
frustrated that we could not magically transform into Amazon. Like, just make it as human, again, as possible. Of like, this is why this is here. This is why people celebrate us, but this is also why people are mad, and it's often a product situation that is the root of those negative CSAT scores, and folks need to know.
Actually, I think you said something really important, which is I love that you intentionally use it to get better. Like when you're early on, it's if you use CSAT or any metric in a vacuum, it's worthless. Like, what's the point of having 100% CSAT if you don't know what you're going to do with it? But the fact that you're using that feedback to then improve a process, to make a customer experience better, like that's how I look at it too. I actually want the feedback, especially the low scores with a comment. Like those are the ones that are going to really help you out early on, because you should not expect to have you shouldn't even care about a high CSAT score early on. But I think, Sarah, that's the right approach, is just how can you use this as a tool to improve, the things that we're doing versus a certain score you kind of get fixated on. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, no, it definitely can make an impact if you do it not in a I need to hit a number way, but in a why am I hitting this number way. All right, so we have not hit any really of the questions. Surprise! But I do want a quick pivot for a second because we've talked about this a little bit about the second hire. And I know from experience that getting buy-in to get a second hire is a challenge, because if you are good at what you're doing, if you are good at wearing a lot of hats, why do you need additional headcount? And you were a second hire, Kenji, at your current role. And so what was it that triggered this need for someone like you to join the team?
I think everyone has a tipping point. And so as much as we want to take on everything, that's a single point of failure. People are going to get sick. People are going to take breaks. They should take vacations. So I think that was the turning point of realizing, oh my God, we're relying on one person. And every time that they're out, we have to shut down support. So I think that was the first trigger for Front to go, okay, we need someone. And then what you usually do is, what gaps, what are you missing? Like what would complement the first hire? So like from the third hire, we didn't have somebody who was an expert in knowledge bases. So I really intentionally looked for someone who, like with the teacher background, that could potentially be that person. And I think with me, they were looking for someone who had a little more structure, I had the Q crusher. Corey was there, she's crushing it. But I'm her backup. So when she's out, I can cover her. I can bring in more process. So I think that's the second hires. Even in the first 5, you're always looking for a skill set that complements the following one. And then you kind of have your core team. But I think the first one is the most critical, because like Priscilla, you're setting the tone, you're kind of building the culture. And then we come in as the second hire and we're just filling in this gap of, can I cover you while you're out? But also, what are some strengths that I might have that could actually make us both a lot better together? And you just kind of keep
Mhm.
doing that. And now my team is, 25, and I just kind of multiplied that over time where, we probably got every specific SME skill, fit, but I'm always looking for like, can you add a little bit of something? Like we're not perfect as much as we like to think we're like the most complete team. You can always add something new to the mix.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Priscilla, when you were alone
Yeah.
in your support world, what was the one like moment that you knew that you could no longer steer this ship by yourself?
Yeah, I think Kenji hit the nail on the head. I didn't feel comfortable taking time off because I knew that that was going to put the weight on non-support people to jump into the queue or leave a queue empty. And so it was really hard. I remember one Memorial Day, working on Memorial Day and being like, this isn't a great balance here. And, you know, to be fair, it was only I was the one who wanted to work on Memorial Day because I didn't want to leave our non-US customers without someone there for them. And so, it's so that was the big thing, was that I needed someone else on my team to help with that balance. But I will say another big reason we hired someone is because we found a person who was great and we didn't want to let them go. And we knew we were growing and we wanted to hire before it was a painful situation when we had to hire someone fast and the right person was available. And I think that that's another thing that I've learned over the years is when you run into someone who is looking for work, who is a good fit for your team, even if you don't have a perfect role ready for them, don't let them pass you by, because it's finding the right person for your team is a huge, I mean, it's huge. Hiring is such a painful process sometimes. And so when you find someone who's a good fit, even if you're not in the place where you necessarily need a full-time person immediately, like get them on the team and figure out how that's going to work. Because I think that was one of the things for us is our second hire, she had just moved to Jacksonville and was looking for something, and we knew she would be a great fit culturally, and support was something that aligned with her strengths. She was a teacher as well. And we were like, we're just going to do this. We're going to need 2 full-time people in a couple months anyway. So let's get going and let's get ahead of it. And it allowed us to level up our service because we had a little more, a little more manpower than we needed at the time. And like Kenji was saying, it allowed us to use our strengths in different ways to make our overall service just that much better.
That's so
Yeah.
fun. Like I couldn't agree more. We literally did the same thing with the hire after me. Like we didn't have a role. But I'm like, we can't let her walk. And
Yeah.
so I think the advice I would give to, if you're the first or second person and you're trying to convince the leadership team to make this hire, like onboarding takes time. Pulling people off to do interviews takes, especially when you're 1 or 2 people. I mean,
Yes.
that's going to impact the customer experience. So yeah, if you feel like it's a hell yes, you should not let that go. Like if deep in
Yeah.
your body you feel like that's the right person, you should definitely fight for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a really big point that we really need to trust our guts. Like the culture fit is so important and you got to trust your gut. If you meet somebody that you know is going to allow you to take a day off, that will allow you to continue to scale with your tone being able to exist in these
Mhm.
spaces that you don't have to always be in anymore, you can't let that go at all. And that leads me to the next thing that I'm really curious about, because when it's just you, your processes and your documentation and your systems are all aligned to you and how you do your best work. And doesn't matter how great you are at your job, you will not be a perfect match for that next person, and they will not take that information the same way that you took that information. And so it's really a test of, does all this stuff actually work when there's
Mhm.
more than one person? Not like, does this work at scale of like 30, 40 people, but like going from 1 to 2, I think it's a lot like with kids, like going from 1 kid to 2 kids is an explosion of doom that
Oh
you
yeah,
never love my kids, but
same.
you don't know what it's gonna be like, what that change is actually going to mean, how you're going to have to think about things now that it's not just you that you are planning for and
Mm-hmm.
documenting for and building things for, and it's so important, but you can't really be prepared for it
Yeah.
because you have no idea what's gonna work and what's not gonna work. So, Priscilla, when you added that person,
Yeah.
especially when you added someone unexpectedly, like it's not like you had prepped all of this
Right.
scaling material, onboarding material. Um, how did it go?
I think that the biggest thing I remember was, oh, all of this stuff has lived in my head. The reason I do everything the way I do it has lived in my head. I haven't really had to document a ton of things and write out a bunch of processes. And so when this new person came on the team, there was a lot of collaboration, but the biggest thing was me writing down what we did and why we did them, like why we did something a certain way. And it really pushed me to define the intention behind our processes. And so there were some times where I would say, well, I do this because this is the way I do this.
Yeah.
Well, that's not enough. I need to have a reason why. And so then having a outside perspective come in and say, well, is that the best way to do it, was really beneficial for me and for our service, because it helped us solidify, okay, what are we doing? Are we still behind doing it that way? Or, and like writing down all those processes. I think, as I was thinking through some of this conversation, the biggest thing is write everything down. Just write everything down. Even if you're by yourself, write it down. It forces you to go through the why am I doing it this way? It's so easy to make in the moment decisions that don't have a ton of intentionality behind them when you're alone and the only person working in a queue. And then someone comes and says, why did you do it that way? And you don't really have an answer for it. But if you're writing down, this is how I handle this kind of a situation,
Mhm.
it helps you train your second hire, but it also helps you understand why you're doing something the way you're doing it. And then you can stand on it, right? If you know why you're doing something the way you're doing it, why you've decided to approach a problem that way, then if you're, one of the head of marketing comes over and says, "Why are you telling people this?" You can stand on it and say, "Well, cuz I think this is the right way to do it." And so that was the biggest thing for me when our second hire came on, was kind of using her outside perspective and solidifying those processes a little more and defining the why for us as a team and why we are handling situations the way we are, and making sure that aligns with the company values and our values as a support team.
Yeah. What a great practice to implement, because a lot of the decisions I'm sure you were making were because you were one person. Like, it was
Yeah.
survival. Like, it
Yeah.
was, this is what I had to do to get to the end of my day and be able to start the next day. And when you have to then think of, wait a second, this doesn't just have to fall on my shoulders anymore. This isn't just a me thing. It takes some of
Mhm.
that responsibility off of you to carry
Yeah.
everything, and delegate in those early days and start to build that muscle, which is a really hard
Yeah.
muscle to build when it's just been you making things work for a long time. Um, Kenji, you've talked on LinkedIn quite a bit about your hiring philosophy, and I've always loved how vocal you've been about this because it isn't something many in support talk about. Um, and it really matters to have a grasp on hiring well and hiring thoughtfully and trusting yourself when you're
Mhm.
hiring instead of just listening to what others are telling you you should do for your team. So what's one belief about hiring that you think most companies get wrong when they're starting to build those early teams? You touched on it a little bit, but
Yeah,
is
I
there
think
anything that really stands out?
Man, I really think nailing the interview process, like it's so hard because we talk about when you're the first or second person, you don't have documentation, and like the last thing on your mind is building out this really robust hiring process. But it's honestly the best investment you can make because if you think about it, the first few people you hire, we've obviously kind of proved are the most impactful. Like that's going to define your team for years and years to come. And so this is my whole philosophy is the hell yes or no. And so even in a simple step that I think a lot of people get wrong is they have like a 1 to 4 scoring system, right? Everyone kind of falls in the middle on this three. To me, a three is a soft no.
Yeah.
So it's just I am either it's yes or it's no. And if I see one no in my panel, so even in the early days when it's just three of us, if Helena is saying two, I'm even if I'm a four, we agree that's not the right fit because in a small team, we've all got to agree. Like we have to be able
Mm-hmm.
to share the load. We have to all agree that this is the next person who's going to bring us to the next level. And then I think the other thing is just people tend to lower the bar over time. And I actually raise the bar and go like, can we one up that person that we just hired? And so now, we're on our 26th hire that is starting in a few days. So hi, EJ. He's gotten to the point where the bar is so high, incredibly high. We just know we're going to have amazing people. And that's just kind of crafted over the years. But you can do this really early as well. Just don't settle for, even when you're drowning in the queue. And I've been there. I literally, it was funny when you were telling the story, Priscilla, about, like kind of like documenting things. We gave Corey, the first hire, that vacation right away. So it was Helena and I, she started the week after me, just working the queue with no documentation. And so, even in those busy times, I think it's worth it to step away from the queue, even if you feel guilty, and really think about, even for an hour, like, what is this hiring process? Who do we want? Who's the type of person we want on this team? And continue just to keep raising the bar over time.
Yep. Yep. No, I love that. And I actually have been using that soft no mentality when we've been going through our hiring process lately because you do need to give yourself permission to think that way. Like because when you're in it, you're like this is good enough.
Yeah, they're good.
There's nothing wrong with this person. Like it's fine. But then when you start asking yourself, why are we moving forward with fine? Why are we
Mm-hmm.
moving forward with fine when there's 10,000 people that applied for this
Yeah.
job?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh
like,
man.
yes, this is time consuming totally, but if we are just chilling at fine, then we need to stop
Mm-hmm.
and we need to regroup and we need to acknowledge that this pool isn't meeting our needs. Are there any others that are in the pipeline that might be above fine, but are they that hell yes? Are they that one that you are like wanting to send a message on LinkedIn to and be like, I'm so happy that I've met you. I'm so
Right.
excited for what this is going to be like. Because that is, especially in support, when it is a human interaction focused space, you have to have people that you like talking to, that you
Yeah.
trust
Yeah.
how they communicate.
Yeah.
Because what else what else really matters that they have really good CSATs from another company? Like that's like you've got to every company's so different. Yours matters. Finding your fit matters and you're actually doing people a disservice when you hire
Yep.
folks that are
Yeah.
not the perfect fit, hoping that they'll change or hoping that you don't realize you don't see something in them and it will actually prove to be valuable. You've just prevented them from interviewing for a place that they are a hell yes.
Yeah.
And that's not great either.
Yeah. And you'll know right away. You will, if you are willing to fight for this person, then that's your hire. If you're not willing to and you're
Yep.
going to concede as soon as somebody gives a little bit of critical feedback, then that's not the right fit for you.
Yep.
Yep, totally. So we're getting close to the end here, and there is something that I think is really worth acknowledging, and we talked about it a little bit with how hard it is to step away in those early days. But emotional labor in CX leadership as your company scales is a big part of your job. Like you are working with people that are connecting with customers that are emotional
Mm-hmm.
that that they're struggling with problems, and then your team is then struggling with problems, and they need to then put that back to a customer in a way that is digestible. But then all of that falls on you to carry and to
Yeah.
manage and to delegate, but still to hold. You are that touch point of, I'm having a really hard time communicating this, or I'm feeling really anxious because the queue is high and I'm just not in the right headspace. So you have to continue that emotional labor muscle that you built when you were in the queue and transfer that over into a leadership position with folks that aren't just going to move away after you're done with
Yeah.
their email, that you're going to be with. Um, but Priscilla, how do you personally manage the emotional labor aspect of CX leadership while still being present and
Yeah.
accessible to your team?
Yeah, it's something that I feel like I didn't know. Obviously, when I started working in support, I had very little experience in support. And I really didn't understand until I was in it every day just how much of an emotional toll it takes to be giving remarkable service to strangers, essentially every day, all day. And then at the end of the day, you go home and you're expected to continue to give that kind of empathy and grace to the people you know and love. And it's a really hard thing, and over time, it can be really difficult. And one of the things that my, you know, supervisors at the time, the partners of Buzzsprout, one thing they always reminded me of when I was the one in the queue was it's important to take time and to not be in the queue. It's important to give yourself a break. And when you are feeling that weight, that emotional weight, like, take a step back. It's okay. Like, give it a moment. And also the importance of letting things roll off your back. I mean, there's this aspect of people are going to be frustrated, and we don't really have the luxury all the time of getting our feelings hurt. And so you have to be able to let some of that roll off of your back. And as I transitioned into a leadership role with this team, I think what I realized was I'm no longer carrying that, like, emotional connection with my customers as much. It's more now that I am doing it for my team, like you were saying. And so now I have to be the one looking out for them and making sure that they are taking the breaks that they need, that when things get frustrating, they have 100% confidence that they can pass an email on to me and avoid that, because I would much rather have them work on 10 emails with someone who's happy than one email with someone who's being rude and treating them poorly. I would much rather carry that
Oh,
for
sure.
them. And I think
Yeah.
that's, you know, it's the hard thing, but it's also this, like, shift of the people that are my customers now are the people on my team. Those are my customers, and I'm going to make sure they're taken care of so that they can take care of Buzzsprout's customers. And a lot of times it's making it very known that you're there for them when they want to pass something off to you, or it's encouraging them to take time off. I had someone yesterday who reached out and said, I'm kind of feeling under the weather. My kids are home because they're under the weather, but I'm going to jump in the queue and help clear it. And I was like, no, you're not. Go to bed. Go watch a movie with your kids. Heal your body. Like, it is not, I do not need you to be in the queue right now. And I think sometimes you have to push people, especially if you're hiring the kind of person that is like, wants to take ownership, and you've got these people that want to be people pleasers. You kind of have to push them and say, no, 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 you need to worry about you right now. I need you to take a step back, because ultimately you're going to provide a better service when you come back from being refreshed than you are going to be if you're pushing through that emotional weight and not taking any time to take a breath.
Yep. Yeah. And it's through our own trauma,
Yes.
usually, that we come to these realizations that we've got to teach the people that come after us of these, because yeah, it's true. And when you
Yeah.
spin it into, no, like, you are doing a disservice
Yeah.
by coming in, because you're not going to be fully present, because you're not supposed to be fully present, because you're supposed to be not here.
Right.
Like, this is, if you are stressed about stuff, if you've got stuff going on at home, if you've got a lot on your plate, take that time. Take that time. Like, go and
Yeah.
do what you need to do to sort your stuff out. And it's not a negative thing. You're not
No.
failing. You're not looking bad to anybody. It's just like, you are a human being that is allowed to be a human being. And if you're coming
Yep.
in and you have a terrible head cold and like have a dog that needs to go to the vet, and you're like, I've got to push it off until 6 o'clock tonight because that's the only time I can get there after work, but you're super sick and you just need to take a nap. Like, how
Yeah.
are you going to be able to be present?
And some things are more important than the queue.
So much.
And I know that it's hard to say that as a support professional sometimes, but there are some things that are more important than the work in the inbox. And maybe your dog going to the vet now is more important. And you don't need to take your computer with you and work from the waiting room. We sometimes feel that, oh, I can take my computer and I technically can sit there and work from the waiting room, so I should. But no, you shouldn't. Be present where you are there. And then when you come back, be present here. But if you're splitting your focus, you're right. It does a disservice to you because now you can't focus on the thing that you should be focusing on, which is your dog or your kids or getting healthy. But you're also doing a disservice to the queue when you split it and you can't focus there. So yeah, I think giving people permission to take that time, especially in like our generation, I think is hard sometimes. And so it's good to like push people and say, no, you need to take time off. Enjoy it. Like either enjoy a vacation or use this time to heal your body. It's important.
Yeah. And also giving yourself permission to take time off, because I think the pressure I felt was, oh my God, my boss never takes time off. He's slacking me from where, and like, and I didn't want to put that on my team. So I also had to kind of force myself to take time off and go like, well, I've been working way too much. And, I think that actually helped my team to go like, okay, like Kenji's taking time off. It's probably okay. I could do this early on even.
That is such a good point. Your team is looking to you for the behavior that they're supposed to, the behavior you're modeling. So if you're never taking time off and if you're never taking a sick day, and I'm saying this to myself right now actively, then you need to be doing that. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've worked through a cold and, and so of course my, person on my team is going to come to me and say, I'm going to work through it. And I'm saying, no, don't work through it. But what am I telling her when I work through it? And so I think that's a really good point. You have to push yourself to meet the standards that you're expecting your team to meet when it comes to balancing your life and taking time when you need it.
So true. I mean, I took Slack off my phone for work stuff for that very reason. Because like you can reach me via email. I've got email on my phone if there's like an emergency, but it's because I know myself, and I know that if I am able to see it, I will do it no matter what time, no matter what day. And then I won't be able to sit anywhere and like be present at like my kids' school stuff, or because everything feels urgent all the time. And
if you think about it, it's because those are the skills that made us really great first hires, was that urgency and not taking the time. So it's really hard to unlearn those things. So sometimes I go like, why am I not taking time? It's because we were kind of trained and rewarded to be this, superhuman for probably about a year or two in the first couple of years. And so, of course, naturally, it's something you kind of have to unlearn. It is hard. It's not like a snap of the fingers kind of thing.
It is hard. I could talk to you guys about this specifically.
I know, me too.
Really in general, for like seriously 80 hours, but we are at the end of this first conversation. Maybe we can do a part 2 later because we seriously got to 2 of the questions that were on the list. I tried my best, really, but thank you both so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your vulnerabilities. And I think that these are all things that we need to be extra loud about, because these are the foundations that build the teams. And it's never too late to change the foundations. You can always rebuild the foundations. Give yourself permission to ask those questions. Why am I doing this? Does this need to be done this way? Can we think about things differently? Because just because it's been done doesn't mean it always has to be done that way. But anything, Kenji, you want to say before we go?
No, I'm down for part 2. I wish we could get into, so we could talk about this stuff all day. But no, thank you so much, Sarah, for having me on. And hopefully this does help. I know it's a really stressful period being the first few hires. We've all been there. The thing you could probably tell by Priscilla and I, we have very similar experiences. So you're probably going through something just like us. Even if mine was 7 years ago, I guarantee it's about the same today. So just know you're not alone. join communities and reach out to people. Reach out to me if you need someone to talk to.
Love
Yeah.
that. Priscilla, anything you want to say before we
Yeah.
sign off?
I'm down for part 2 as well. So, let's get it on the schedule.
Let's do that.
Yeah, what you just said about getting into a community or finding other people, that's such a big part of it. I did not do that. And I think it served me not well to not be a part of a community. And so if you're in a situation where you're starting and you don't really know where you're going, find a community. There are so many good ones out there for support professionals. And yeah, that is that's such good advice. And you can listen to Happy to Help if you want to for some
That's true.
guidance, because I talk a lot on there about what it was like in those first couple years and figuring things out as I went. So if you're in that position, you might want to listen to it. It might be helpful.
No, definitely promote that. I've learned so much still
I'm gonna check it out
by
for
listening to
sure.
Happy to Help, and also I've learned so much from Kenji's newsletter. So make sure that you've subscribed to that if you haven't already. But thank you both so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I can't wait for part 2.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.